A word of warning, this podcast explores graphic and disturbing stories and includes some strong language. It therefore may not be suitable for our young listeners or other folks who may find it disturbing. Hello and welcome to True Crime News, the podcast covering high-profile and under-the-radar cases from across the country every week. I'm your host, Ana Garcia. Our case this week, she's accused of killing husband number 5. And one of her fiancés, who I guess would have made it 6 husbands, never made it to the altar because she killed him in self-defense, according to police. But now, in light of the current murder charges, prosecutors in the self-defense case are taking another look. Who is this woman? Does she just have bad luck with men, or is she the problem? We are recording this on Friday, October 3rd of 2025. Our guest today is Gisela K, creator and host of the YouTube channel Grizzly True Crime. Welcome back, Gisela. How are you?
Thank you, Anna. It's so great to be back. I'm doing well. I hope you are as well.
This is very international today. You're joining us from Switzerland. We love that.
I am indeed, and happy to be here.
Great. Well, this case is, as I would say, everything about this case is big. Texas, big. A woman in Chambers County stands accused of killing her husband. Now, this is husband number 5. And now the death of a previous fiancé is getting a second look from authorities. The accused here is Sarah Hartsfield. She is 50 years old. She is currently on trial for 1 count of murder in the death of her 5th husband, Joseph Hartsfield, who is 46. Sarah has pleaded not guilty and has been in jail for 2 years waiting for trial. Trial has finally begun. We're in the first week of the trial, and it's expected to go for about 3 weeks now in a Texas courtroom. What is your initial reaction to this case?
Is she a serial wife or a serial killer? The more I look at this case, I'm like, and then what? There's a lot of red flags, so there's nothing proven beyond the fiancé being shot, she said, in self-defense, and now being on trial for the murder of husband number 5. But my goodness, there's a lot of chaos surrounding her. It's like a very dark energy, and just trying to track everything that people say she did, it's very interesting.
Yeah, definitely there's a lot going on there. But for me, the biggest problem, I think, for the prosecution is that her husband's manner of death has been ruled undetermined. So how do you prove homicide if homicide is not manner of death?
That is, it's kind of bothersome when it's undetermined, especially because they said that he had an insulin overdose, and there's evidence that there were 10 insulin pens or syringes right there by his bedside. So why is it undetermined? It's kind of frustrating, but at the same time, so how do they prove it then? They would have to prove that she delivered that, and they would have to prove that she neglected all the notifications that were going off to give him his insulin. So it could get very challenging.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's quite easy to say, oh my gosh, she's on husband number 5. One she killed in self-defense. Now she's accused of killing this one. Oh, there's a lot of smoke there. Yes, absolutely. A lot going on in this circus. And the question will be, what will the jury decide about the evidence? And so far, the testimony, honestly, has been mixed. So let's get into the details of this case. She stands accused of killing her husband, Joseph, in 2023 with too much insulin. Now, he was a diabetic. Okay, so as we said, the manner of death remains undetermined. Okay, that's a weak spot for the prosecution. Her defense is quite interesting. Her defense is, look, he didn't manage his diabetes well. He's in charge of managing himself. And if he didn't do a good job, that's his fault, not her fault. Complicating all of this is he wore a monitoring device that would send an alert when levels started to become dangerous, an audible alert. And so the testimony this week was that the monitor was already indicating that there was a problem for hours, so presumably was beeping for hours. Okay, what happened there? Why didn't he respond to his medication unless he was not conscious?
Exactly. I think the defense has something to work with there, because the question that comes up is, did she usually help him administer the insulin? Or did he always do it himself, and now this time, you know what I mean? That's going to be interesting to prove. Now, if he was unconscious and she said she was actually sick herself, taking some medication, and she wasn't able to attend to him. So I do think it's going to be interesting what the jury decides, as much as, you know, her history is quite questionable.
Exactly. She was recovering from some form of surgery, and so was woozy and was aware of something, but, you know, she thought he was on top of it and she went back to rest. Now, prosecutors say she waited 1 hour before calling for an ambulance. And that is an indication to them that this was part of the murder plan. I think waiting an hour to call an ambulance is a long time. The question is, what condition was she in? I don't know. It's certainly suspicious.
It is, and the other thing the defense could argue is, well, she did call 911, or she did call an ambulance, so she did the right thing. Like, when she could, she did make that call instead of, oh, sorry, he passed away at home. I think that's in her favor, and I think in many ways, in many of the, you know, things surrounding her life, she walks that fine line. It's very calculated, if anything. Of course, she's innocent till proven guilty in a court of law.
Exactly. Well, Joe died a few days later in the hospital. Now, Joe's mother and sister have already testified that Sarah would not let them see Joe in the hospital. Then they also testified she wouldn't let them come to the funeral. So then the mother and the sister had their own memorial service and they wouldn't let Sarah come to that. So clearly there's a lot going on in this family.
Very messy, and I believe that Sarah had someone film, you know, the last moments with her husband, number 5, you know, putting on a bit of a show, and people found that quite jarring. Like, why is she having this filmed, and she's like weeping over him, and she needed to show, you know, how very sad she was.
It's all very strange. And then the body cam video when the authorities are talking to her at the hospital, because the hospital alerted the police when Joseph came in, because just a lot of things were not making sense. They were very suspicious. So the body cam is showing this conversation, and she keeps saying, but why are you asking me? Like, why are you asking me these questions? Meaning, it's just but here's the flip side to that. If I'm in the hospital with my husband or significant other, and all of a sudden the police are questioning me about what's happening with him, I'd be like, why are you talking to me? What does this have to do with anything, especially if I didn't do anything?
Yeah, exactly. That is what one would expect. So she's not quite doing that. So that is, not counting in her favor for the jury.
The mother and the sister also told the jury this week that Joseph had confided in them that he feared for his life and that he was afraid that his wife was going to kill him while he was in his sleep, and in fact had already started making moves toward a divorce and moving out, and he'd gone to the bank with his sister to set up an account, and so the preparations were underway for him to leave because he wasn't happy. Now, here's her version of events. Well, she wasn't happy with him. She had complained that he wasn't making enough money. They hadn't even been married a year. They was just like short of a year by a month or so. So clearly nobody was happy in this marriage. Nobody was happy. So far I haven't seen what the benefit to her is with Joseph dead. Like, no one has mentioned any financial gain yet. Although there's the house. Apparently she was going to sell the house. So presumably that's it. Look, you've been married 5 times. You're used to divorce. I can't imagine that she couldn't live with the stigma of yet another divorce. That couldn't possibly be it.
No, she probably had husband number 6 lined up already. That seemed to be her pattern as well. This would be a shame. One dead, but the others, divorced, and the next one is already lined up. So yeah, if there's no life insurance or anything, maybe she was just looking at the property. Maybe she's just sadistic, or maybe she's completely innocent.
Yeah, she's a complicated woman. I mean, think about it. 5 husbands, and she's just 50 years old. I mean, it's a lot going on there. It's a lot going on. Okay. Now, here's the other thing that I think is a weakness for the prosecution and really supports the defense. Joseph's doctor testified that she found it baffling that he didn't immediately react to his monitor alerts, meaning he did not have to die. This was completely manageable and preventable. But here's what she said also. She said that he was not following her medical instructions and that he wasn't, these are her words, wasn't taking his insulin consistently. Well, that completely supports what the wife and the defense is saying. He didn't manage his insulin.
Yeah, so that would definitely, if I was on the jury, I would question that, because if he wasn't managing it consistently or taking his insulin consistently, and now suddenly there's a lot, I mean, I can't stand it when a trial says victim blaming that goes on, but in this case, there's room for that, unfortunately, because they've got to defend Sarah Hartsfield as much as possible, and who knows if that could be the case.
Okay, so the prosecution has said that Sarah hated Joe, and as we've said, both wanted out of the marriage. Okay. That generally, when someone dies suspiciously, comes into play, meaning, oh, they were about to divorce? What could that be a motivation here? Now, police called Joe's death, he died in January of 2023, as foul play. They said that initially because they were alerted to these inconsistencies at the hospital. Sarah then is indicted February 3rd of 2023. Now, this is interesting. According to one of the police reports, she allegedly told the jailer they couldn't possibly have enough evidence against me. Well, that, to me, is an interesting comment, because I just would have said, but I didn't do this. I wouldn't say, oh, there's not enough evidence against me.
Yeah, that's an incriminating statement. I wonder, will the jury get to hear about that at all or not? I would think not. But if so, yeah,
it's in
that's
the
not
police
someone
report.
saying.
If it's been made public, I feel like the judge in this case has been lenient in permitting her past histories, because this whole issue with the self-defense and the death of her fiancé, that's already been admitted. And there's another component. There's another crazy thing in this case. Apparently, and we're going to get into the details of it, she was allegedly trying to arrange for the new wife of a previous husband to be killed. She
Yes.
and no one else was ever charged in that case. So that's complicating everything. But the judge has already ruled that both of these things will be introduced, so the juries will know about it. A lot of times, your previous history is excluded from the current case because everyone feels like that really taints the jury. It makes you look guilty. So I find that fascinating, really. And 2 of her former husbands will be testifying. They've been subpoenaed.
Oh, man, I wish there were cameras in the courtroom. We want to see that because they've already had a lot to say on documentaries about her. I mean, all of her husbands say, except obviously the one that can't speak now. Actually, 2, right? It's a fiancé and a husband who had died. One was shot, she said, in self-defense, and then Joseph Hartsfield died from this undetermined but maybe insulin overdose. But they all said that they feared for their life. I mean, husband number 1, Titus, said that he's glad he got out of that divorce alive. And everybody, he said, used to joke, like, why would you say that? Now they're like, oh, oh, I see. So I'm glad that they're bringing in some of that. It is fascinating because it doesn't happen often. I think
Yes,
the judge
it
knows.
doesn't. Not
Bring
in
some
our
of that
courts.
in.
She met Titus, husband number 1, in 1991 in high school. Pair married 2 years later. Lasted about 5 years. They divorced in 1996. And as you said, Titus was always shocked that he survived getting out of that marriage alive. And his wife said, his new wife, Angela, said, well, they could never get rid of Sarah. She just would not leave their lives. which is kind of weird. Like, why is she hanging around? Go bother someone else. You guys are divorced. Go away now. If I were the new wife, I'd be, get the heck out of here. They didn't have kids, so what do you care? You know what I mean?
Right. And if she's moving on, she's having affairs. Why is she doing that?
There's a lot about Sarah we don't understand. She's a complicated woman, Sarah. Her second marriage to Michael was even more brief, and the two have never spoken in years. That's what we're told. Now, by the time Sarah marries for the third time, things change a little bit for her. It seems almost like she settled down a bit. So she met third husband, Christopher Donahue, in Alaska. They married in 1999. Sarah and Christopher shared 4 children together, living mostly at Fort Hood, Texas, where they were both stationed in the Army. She's an Army vet. So in 2017, Christopher filed for divorce from Sarah. And that same year, Sarah found love again. This woman is either very lucky or unlucky or both at the same time. And so she falls in love with a man named David Bragg. They met at Fort Hood. They were planning to get married and move to Minnesota. And they eventually did move to Minnesota. Well, it was a very short engagement because this poor man, David, did not survive. After a contentious argument in 2018, and apparently they were arguing about Sarah's third husband coming to visit with their children, and she claims that David became violent and that she got the beating of her life from him. She claims that he fired at her and she fired back in self-defense. He died. The case was preliminarily investigated in the sense that the prosecutor said that her version of events lined up with the scene, and therefore they determined that it was justifiable, that it was self-defense. So David died on May 9th of 2018. Okay, so you put that kind of behind her, if you will, meaning it appears to be investigated, determined, they're not going to prosecute. Well, all that has now changed. All that's changing in light of the murder charges. So now that case is getting a second look. The thing is, all the evidence in that, I think, is pretty much gone. I don't know what new evidence there's going to be.
Yeah, right. Are they looking at it just so they can bring it into this trial a little bit, or can they actually prove that? That's going to be very difficult, as you say now. The only thing that I think there is interesting is that she shot him in the heart. She's like, oh, I just reacted. But damn, that's some good aim. I know she was in the Army, but wow, okay.
This reminds me of the Lori Vallow case, which I hate to talk about because it's just nothing but pure insanity and evil.
Yes.
But there was a former husband who ends up getting killed, at her door. And at first it was considered justifiable. And then when you pull back the lens, you look at the big picture and you're like, oh, yeah, maybe that was a setup. So it's entirely possible that now with the lens being pulled, you can actually see everything in focus. So we'll see. We'll see if there are additional charges there coming from the death of David Bragg. Now, let's get into the really complicated alleged murder plot. According to the Sierra Vista police, Sarah allegedly asked husband number 4, which would have been the current one at the time. I know we need an org chart for this. To kill the new wife of husband number 3. Husband number 3, Donahue, the one who she has the children with, told a judge this while he was trying to get a protective order to keep her away from him and his family. That's how this alleged plot came out. So there's, some documentation of it in a court. This allegedly happened in 2021. Okay, try and follow me here. Christopher number 3 claimed that husband number 4 told him that Sarah was pressuring her current husband to get rid of Christopher's new wife. I know it's really, really complicated. And that Sarah had given David, the new husband, a pistol to carry to and to act on her directions. And the current husband said, and Sarah said, and you can't come home until you finish the job. She was not killed. The new wife was not killed. No one was killed here.
Thank goodness. Yes.
Right. And then a judge did grant a protective order in barring Sarah from any contact with Christopher or his family for 2 years. No surprise, marriage number 4 didn't last very long, obviously, with this kind of drama. And here's the other thing. Okay, so there are no charges associated with the alleged plot. And I know this is complicated. And Sarah, let's get back to the current Joseph, the poor Joseph who's dead, okay?
Number 5. Yeah.
Number 5. Sarah was allegedly recounting the time that she was investigated for this murder plot to Joseph, number 5's family. And they got very scared and suspicious because now they hear about the fiancé who she shot dead. Now they're hearing about this alleged plot, and they're scared, thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen to Joseph? Okay, the FBI has had no comment on this case. No charges were ever brought. However, the Sierra Vista police confirm that the FBI had asked the local police department to do extra drive-bys at the home of husband number 3, where the wife was the target of this alleged plot. Now, it's also part of the protective order. But the question is, why is the FBI allegedly involved in this?
That's an interesting case. I do hope they pursue that one as well.
Yes, and the fact that the 2 husbands, 3 and 4, have been subpoenaed for this case, I think that will be fascinating. And in many ways, some of the inconsistencies and the holes in the prosecution's case, for me, that alleged murder plot, for me, those will be the nails in her coffin.
Yes. I think so as well.
And here's another reason I think it's very strong. Because it's not like, oh, they're just saying it now, right? You can say anything. This was in a court, was presented before a judge as proof as to this woman is potentially dangerous to me and to my family. And then you couple that with what the police department said about the FBI asking for drive-bys. That's very strong. That was a real perceived threat at the time. So I think that is the nail in her coffin.
Yes, I think so as well.
They're afraid of her.
Yes.
Right? The husbands, the ex-husbands are afraid of her. I think Joseph would say with good reason, if he were still here today with us, he would say, and with good reason. And let's not forget about, the fiancé who is also dead. All right.
Yes.
So Sarah, how did Sarah and Joseph meet? Well, they met online and then the couple married February 2nd of 2022. 11 months later, Joseph was in the hospital and dying. He was a diabetic, as we've said, and there have been the issues with, okay, what was going on? Was he truly managing this? He'd had it for such a long time. Joseph's condition was worsening despite their attempts to save him. Now, that to me is the interesting part here. Did things go so far medically that it was the point of no return? I mean, one would think, sadly, sometimes this does happen with diabetics, but this had gone to the point where there was no return because he died. They could not intervene anymore.
Yeah. So that is interesting. That's why I was questioning. Is there something underlying? We have no evidence of that. I'm just like, that is kind of odd. How she says she tried to give him jam and juice and things to try to revive him. That didn't work. She eventually called the ambulance. And when he gets to the hospital, they try and try and try, and they just cannot help him recover. So yeah, that could count against her. Because there could be mismanagement, maybe, on his part of his insulin. But if you look at his entire life, everything was fine until he met her. Now suddenly he's irrecoverable. Then he dies from that. I mean, yeah, that could count against her for sure.
And I wonder if the jury, and we really won't know until there's more evidence in this case. Is someone's delay in calling 911 perceived to be so reckless that you lead to the death of someone? But as you said, she did call 911 and he did get to the hospital. So there is a lot of murky stuff going on here, a lot of murky stuff. Now, when Joseph was in the hospital, he shared with the nurses that he was planning to divorce Sarah, that he told them he had opened his new bank account and that he was going to return to his hometown. So I'm wondering if those were among the first of the red flags that the nurses were like, this sounds like a dangerous situation.
Yeah, some of them watch some true crime. They see the patterns. Wait, what? So you were trying to leave and you were trying to open a new bank account and you were going to move and then he passes away. Yeah, that's a huge red flag.
On January 15th of 2023, Joseph passed away, and medical examiners were able to confirm that Joseph's death was caused by toxic effects of insulin, but again, manner undetermined. Okay, after the poor man passes away, Sarah goes on Facebook claiming that she was numb and lost without Joseph. That, she kind of appeared to be that grieving widow, and that she was listening to his old voicemails so she could hear his voice. And then she posts, I guess I'm going to try to sleep. I can't possibly cry and weep any more than I have this evening. I love you, Joseph Hartsfield.
Right, but wanted out of the marriage. You know what I mean? It can't be both. It can't be both. So
well,
pick one.
I will say this.
Sarah.
Let's say you're divorcing someone, right? And then all of a sudden they die suddenly. And then, you have these feelings of grief and loss for the person you once loved. Like, I don't think that's so unusual. But I hear what you're saying. I mean, she does appear to be very cold-blooded and calculating, but I'm just going to toss that out there as a possibility.
Right? It's just a little, who's she trying to convince? Because it's like on social media and I couldn't possibly weep anymore. Like, why do you have to post that? What's the intention? Who are you trying to convince and manipulate? That's where my mind goes.
And I think you're right. I honestly do believe that. I was just thinking, could you have compassion for someone you're trying to divorce when they suddenly die? You're like, oh my God, right? Because that's a shocking event, the loss of a human life. But I guess she's kind of numb to these things.
It seems so.
One would think so. So this is kind of weird. According to her friends, Sarah, prior to this hospitalization, was, not that sensitive to Joseph, not that loving and warm and fuzzy. And according to NBC News, Sarah was sharing with a friend and allegedly wrote, I've paid for everything to the point that I have nothing left. He was just looking for a meal ticket and a way back to a lifestyle that he could never attain on his own. She was resentful, but it's not like she kept that a secret. She resented the fact that he didn't make enough money. She wasn't happy in the marriage. She wasn't happy with him. But does that lead to murder?
Does it? Yeah. I mean, in this case, it really could, but it depends again if the jury could see those messages. Isn't husband number 5 also the one that she posted about being like a mama's boy and that he couldn't handle real relationship problems? He handled it like a boy. Isn't it that? I don't know. There's so many.
There's so many husbands.
There's so many husbands. I need a chart to refer to here. So I think that was perhaps Joseph. So if those messages come in and what she posted, it could paint the whole picture for the jury.
Mm-hmm. And I think the testimony of his mother and his sister, it's very strong testimony because he is the victim here. So to hear from the mother and the sister, I think will have a huge effect on the jury.
Yes.
Well, Sarah is ultimately arrested in February of 2023, and she was initially held on $5 million bond because the authorities said this woman is a flight risk and, we don't know what she's going to do. The defense said, this is ridiculous. That's too high. So the judge lowers it to 2 million. She still can't get out. It's lowered, but she still can't get out. So her trial began in earnest September 29th, 2025, this year. And there is a jury of 8 men and 4 women. I find that the whole thing is going to be very interesting. And in the opening arguments, prosecutors claim that Sarah had resented Joseph and how close he was to his family and how he didn't make any money and worked these really long shifts, and that Joseph was making these plans to leave Sarah, and she did whatever she could to stop him, that he was not going to leave her. She could leave him, but he could not leave her. And the defense has been very clear on the holes that they're poking here. We still don't know truly what the manner of death was. It's not been ruled a homicide. And, Joseph really didn't take very good care of himself and had been previously hospitalized, so did have all sorts of medical conditions. And the defense acknowledges, okay, Sarah's reaction to this immediate medical crisis, maybe she didn't handle that as best she could, but that doesn't mean that she's guilty of murder. So that's how they're framing it.
It's well framed. I mean, even from the defense, I think it's going to be a tough battle in the courtroom, depending on what evidence they bring out that we haven't heard of yet. But that does sound tough. It does sound like they might not be able to convict her or prove that, but certainly would open the door to prove other things.
Yeah. This will be fascinating. This trial is expected to last 3 weeks. And one of the questions that everyone has is, will Sarah take the stand in her own defense? We do not know the answer to that. It is time for our comment section. These are the crime cases you all are talking about on social media. And here's our producer, Will Updike. Hey, Will, how are you?
Good. How's it going, Anna?
It's sweater weather as in Los Angeles. Look at you.
I know the listeners and viewers can't tell, but it is overcast. It is rainy in Los Angeles. I have been waiting for this for, I don't know how many months. I love the summer. I love the sunshine, but eventually you're ready for some weather. You're ready for some fall. And that's where I'm at right now. This case, not very fall. I'm calling it for a good time. Don't call. It comes out of Miami, Florida, where a woman allegedly lured a Rolex wearing man with alcohol and the promise of massages before robbing him, with a female friend. So our suspect here, Hugana Davis, was arrested and charged with burglary of an occupied dwelling, third-degree grand theft, and organized scheme to defraud, all in connection with this alleged bad date scam that took place in March. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this sort of bad date moniker, it's not the ones that you've probably experienced before. I think we've all had a few that have maybe felt like schemes, but police say these kind of scams are the result of women approaching men wearing expensive jewelry, kind of looking like they have some sort of air of wealth. They approach them at nightclubs and stuff where they agree to accompany the men back to their homes for some fun. But
massages.
You could fill in the blanks for yourself. But according to police, this is a pretty popular, it's becoming a more prevalent thing there in Miami. Obviously, not a lot of nightlife in that area. There is some level of affluence. So it kind of makes sense. And basically they'll approach these men at nightclubs, sort of encourage them to drink more, sort of rendering them incapacitated. And then, they're able to get back to these men's houses. So cops say in this situation, Davis, our suspect here, who met the man who has not been named, at a liquor store, though, not a nightclub. So a little bit of a different setup in this one. The first person to approach this, the alleged victim here, was Davis's friend, who hasn't been arrested in this whole thing, which is also kind of puzzling. We'll get into that. But they were identified as suspect one in this criminal complaint. They approached, suspect one here approached the victim. Two of them began engaging in small talk. At some point, suspect one here gets into the alleged victim's vehicle, and she stated, her friend was drunk. The suspect one here and the victim arrive at the victim's apartment at around 7:40 p.m. that night, the night of this alleged incident in March here. And then Davis, the defendant here, showed up a little bit later. She showed up to the place around 8 p.m. And once inside here, Davis and suspect one allegedly mixed the victim a drink and encouraged him to drink, which I got to be honest, if you're the victim in this scenario, there's kind of some red flags going off.
Right.
I would think. You know, you're being approached by a stranger. They're telling you their friend is drunk. You're then inviting said friend over to your house and letting them mix your drink. I don't know. Again, I haven't been in the scenario. Obviously, utmost respect to the victims, but it seems like that there should have been some spidey senses going off at some point here. Now, allegedly, they kept kind of encouraging him to drink throughout this. According to the complaint, Davis told the man, "Oh, you are not drinking enough." And so they're like encouraging him to drink more. All three of them are supposedly drinking here. And Davis allegedly starts talking about her massage skills, and she's kind of, rubbing the man. The complaint says that while Davis was giving the victim a massage, the victim observed suspect one grabbing his credit card. So he's starting to see something happening here, and then he yells at her. But suspect one tells him to relax, calms him down, and then shortly after, according to the victim, he falls into like a deep sleep. So he's already gotten like this sort of ominous message that something bad is probably about to happen. But whether it's due to the alcohol, whether maybe there was something else involved, it didn't say in this complaint. There's no allegations of any sort of drugging or anything like that. So it's unclear, but he was unable to sort of, prevent this any further. He was pretty incapacitated there. So, according to the victim, he woke up the next morning around 7:30 a.m., discovered his iPhone was gone. $3,000 was transferred from Zelle rather,
Oh,
to a
God.
bank app that has been associated with what police are saying is a previous victim in a similar sort of bad date case. And that one was investigated by the Miami police. The Rolex that he was wearing, which was valued at around $7,000, was missing, and his spare car keys were also nowhere to be found. So again, there have been sort of other allegations of these bad date schemes. Davis has not been charged in any of these, our suspect here, but they did bring her in as part of a lineup for this whole thing, and she was identified in the photo lineup about a month after the alleged incident. And then the reason we're talking about this now is she was arrested on September 30th for these charges. So I'm not completely clear on what's transpired since that photo ID and like what other evidence they were able to collect. I don't know if they were able to maybe connect that Zelle transfer, or maybe if there was just something a little bit more concrete. But you have, about 5 months here. I mean, almost 6 months from the photo lineup, alleged identification to this arrest. So
Well, I'm
I guess
sure
it could be
that,
that they found something a little bit more
right. Well,
concrete.
there's probably video evidence. It takes a while to get the digital evidence. There may be video evidence from the liquor store, from a parking garage, right? From wherever it is that he lived. So it's entirely possible that, this could put them all at the same place on the same night together.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, obviously need more than a photo lineup, identification. I would think for prosecutors to move forward with any sort of charges, I think you would need something more substantial. But our suspect here, Davis, as of the time of the most recent reporting, which was around Wednesday, so just about 2 days ago, she still remained behind bars at the Turner Guilford Night Correctional Center. She's on a $2,500 bond, and she has been ordered to stay there if the victim, stay away from the victim if she does end up making that and is released. I'm kind of like, well, I guess I guess looking at these charges, burglary of an occupied dwelling, third-degree grand theft, and an organized scheme to defraud. I don't know this bond $2,500. I don't really know how that kind of stuff works, but I guess that maybe these are like more common things. I don't know if Miami has a similar bail thing to Los Angeles, to where they try to keep bail like low or no unless it's more serious, a more
Right.
serious criminal
Right.
sort of matter. So unclear if she's going to be able to post that bond. I mean, it's only $2,500. I would think so, but I don't have any reporting on if she has been released or not. But bad date scheme. I just feel like
It's kind of typical. I mean, it feels really standard, doesn't it?
yeah, yeah.
It
Well, and
does.
people were talking about how in the comments how, this is nothing new. It's just interesting that it's such a prevalent thing there in the area in Miami that they have like, they're looking at it like this almost like a criminal ring, it seems like, of all these things. And obviously they're not, I don't think they're tied or centralized to one single thing, but it's common enough that they're certainly on the lookout for it. I guess be careful when you're out there. Just just
That's
just
right.
be careful. Just be careful. Got a lot of comments on this one. Nadira D said tag team. It reminded me of kind of like a WWE thing where you have like people coming in and out of the ring. This is like I'm so curious again. Like I'm not sure what the deal is with the friend, and I think we'll know more once we get more of the evidence that they were able to like concretely put this on Davis here, because maybe all the paper trail type stuff, right? Like the Zelle transfer. Maybe there's some evidence of them hawking this Rolex or something. I don't know why exactly only one person would be charged in this, especially because the victim themselves said that they witnessed this suspect one here taking the credit cards. So I'm not really sure, but
Probably
it definitely
cooperating. I mean, generally,
that could be too. Yeah.
right, the unindicted co-conspirator sometimes is cooperating and could be cooperating on a bigger level. So that's entirely possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
Life is a criminal, Will. You got to look for the opportunity to get yourself out of a jam.
yeah, no, I guess, yeah, I would be worried about the repercussions, but I don't know, that's why I just stay away from crime. It's a
That's
little bit,
good,
it,
Will.
it makes my life a little less messy for the most part. I can, I got enough, I can get enough legal mess in my life without that. Mr. Soup was impressed with this. They said Slay Queen, which again, I would never advocate for any kind of crime, but this does seem like like such a crime of opportunity that is like rapidly presenting itself to you. Because this wasn't like, this was just like at a liquor store or something. Like you didn't even have to like go to the club or,
You
um,
didn't have to work hard.
yeah. I mean, like truly, and it's one of those things too that's obviously like no theft is victimless, but like you have the person here like they're letting the alleged suspects here into their house and stuff. It's
Well, I'm sure he was
it's
expecting a
tricky.
good time. Huh? It's pretty
I
simple.
know, and that's
Come
like
on, Will,
so
get over this one.
that's like so tricky
He
though.
wanted a therapeutic massage and some other stuff.
Yes.
That's so
That.
tricky though.
It was a hookup.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess. Maybe if that's what you're looking for, it's kind of like
Well, they weren't going to play mahjong.
no, I agree. I agree, but like I I'm never I'm never willing to engage with something where like I'm being solicited. Like so if I'm getting a phone call about some financial opportunity or something, I'm not taking that because I haven't searched this out. It's come to me, and so I can only be skeptical of it. So maybe just apply that same, you could just sort of apply that same sort of
But people are coming
premise.
at us, right, all the time. They're either coming at us at the phone, they're coming at us at the store, they're coming at you as you're getting in and out of your car. I was once in a department store. This is one of the weirdest things. And all of a sudden, this woman walks right by me, very close in the department store. And I felt literally like a magnetic buzz. I felt something. I don't know how else to describe it other than like a gentle zapping, some kind of a magnetic buzz. That's all I can describe. And then she looks at me and she says, "Did you feel that?" As if it was like a magnetic, like one of those. And I'm like looking at her. I'm like, and everything about her is just off, right? Everything about her hair, her clothes, everything is just slightly off. And what she was trying to do was to engage me, either to do a reading for me, is what I think, or she was going to try and get into my pocketbook. as I say, as an old lady from New York, my pocketbook into my handbag. And then I brushed her off. I'm like, I got no time for you, lady. And then I watch her do this to all these other people. So she had something in her purse that she could put on that would make you feel like something had just happened between the two of you. And now we need to engage and discuss this magnetic moment we had. They come at you all the time, Will.
What an opener, though, you know?
Yeah.
You need one of those just to engage in some conversation, maybe.
Well, to distract me from my handbag, no doubt. Why else?
She just wanted to chat with Ana Garcia.
No, she did not. I may have a little bit of a magnetic personality at times, but no, lady. I generate it myself. I have my own magnetic field.
I like that everything about her was a bit off. I hope that's not what people are saying about me when I pop on the Zoom. Anyways, we got some, I'll close this one out with some advice from Manuel S., who said, I'll stick with my Casio when I go out, which also seems like a pretty good way to avoid some of these situations. Maybe don't flaunt anything, and then you won't be a target. But that will do it for this week's comment section. Anna, do you have any comments you want to share?
I do from last week's podcast. Please stand by. Okay, so this is from Pamela H. Happy Vibes. So Pamela has been with us for years. She's one of our best and most loyal fans, and we love Pamela and her whole family. So she writes about last week's podcast. Anna, you have the best guess, and we do. We do. When Mike said the true crime community across the board are really good people, maybe trying to minimize the risk and are not trying to re-traumatize people. Such profound words from such an amazing man. Putting his impressive career aside, Mike is just a good person, and I appreciate him and you so much. That's Mike King, who is a specialist in cults and serial predators, and he's always giving back to the community. And he also builds birdhouses, as this little church birdhouse that he built for me. He was on last week and said at CrimeCon, people were approaching him and saying, hey, where can I buy one of your birdhouses? And he's like, they're not for sale.
It's invite only.
Invite only, that's right. Very exclusive club. And then Crazy Cat Lady Stephanie writes, hey, Anna and team. Hey, Mike. I've learned much listening to you. Thanks, everyone. We thank you. We hope that our conversations, make us think about relationships. Really, it's about red flags and relationships. And also, I know we mentioned this last week, but it arrived this week. We now have a new award, this black block, which is so heavy. I can't even tell you how heavy this thing is. It's 20 pounds. I would get up and get it, but I need a dolly to get it over here.
Yeah.
And it's for best podcast at CrimeCon. But here's the thing, and I just posted this on Instagram or on TikTok. It came with a pair of white cotton gloves, which I have right next to them right there. I have never received an award that came with a pair of white cotton gloves to keep the fingerprints off, which I think is a crime thing. No evidence.
Nice.
I like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That will do it for this week's comment section. I want to thank everybody who did those. You can do that over on our YouTube community page if you want to be a part of this segment. You can also, of course, comment on every single one of our videos, and it does read your comments. That'll do it for me. Until next week, hey, don't do crime.
So, Gisela, where can people find you and follow you?
They can find me on YouTube at Grizzly True Crime. That's my channel, double Z like the bear. My logo is a bear too, Grizzly Bear, but Grizzly True Crime. I'm there most days of the week, actually on weekends as well. Mostly live streaming. There's videos as well, always making some kind of content for the viewers. So I hope to see some of your viewers over there as well.
Absolutely. I'm always curious about, how people get into true crime. What was it about it that interested you?
I think I've just always been, as cliched as it sounds, like safety orientated. I've always felt like responsible, like a little justice warrior. So always trying to look out for people, always trying to spot the red flags, trying to stay safe. And that evolved eventually. At some point, I was an airline pilot at South African Airways, and that's all about checklists, safety, being responsible for people's lives. And then eventually, when I left the airline and left South Africa, I now live in Switzerland. then, it all just evolved from writing some books in true crime and then a podcast and then going to YouTube and just sharing those lessons. And as you say, it's about the relationships as well. Just learning from all these complicated ways that people try to solve problems, which just make their life absolutely terrible as well and ruin so many people's lives with crime. So I'm always trying to think outside the box. What can we learn from this? How can we stay safe? Why do people do this? And spell it out for people that murder is not a way to solve problems. Some people might need to actually hear that. So
yeah, well,
I like to do that.
We could say it, but I'm not sure anybody's going to really hear it because
Yeah.
people just make really bad decisions and choices all the time. But
Right.
we're talking about a human life here. This is not a decision that should be made lightly, and it will not solve the problems under any circumstances.
Nope. And they will get caught.
Yeah, especially more so now. Although, look at the case that we discussed today. It's current. We have all the science possibly available to us. And yet, no matter who looks at the autopsy and the results, the determination is we do not know the manner of death.
Yes.
Right? It's
Yeah.
one of those
So-
few times that we do not know. And that is crucial to this case. Well, it has been such a pleasure. What time is it there in Switzerland?
In Switzerland, the current time is 8 p.m. on October 3rd of 2025.
Thank you. I know I sound like, again, the crazy aunt. What time is it over there?
Ask anytime.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's wonderful. I'm so glad that you came back again. So you can find pretty much everything that we do on social media. One very simple handle, My True Crime News. You can find all our episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. As you see, it's the place where we have the conversation after the podcast. It just continues and lives on, and we continue to talk about these cases. Sign up to receive our newsletter at truecrimenews.com. So until next week, this is True Crime News, the podcast. I'm your host, Ana Garcia. Crime never stops, and neither do we.